Hey fellow workers, my name's Kim Siever. Welcome back to my channel. You know, some people call me a Marxist, but I disagree with Karl Marx on one fundamental definition. Who is the working class? In this video, I'm going to explain how Karl Marx defined working class, how we use the term working class today, and then how I define working class. In the first chapter of The Communist Manifesto, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels define working class, which they label as proletariat, as the following: a class of laborers who live only so long as they find work, and who find work only so long as their labor increases capital. These laborers, who must sell themselves piecemeal, are a commodity, like every other article of commerce, and are consequently exposed to all the vicissitudes of competition, to all the fluctuations of the market. In the 1888 version of the document, Engels added this footnote: by bourgeoisie is meant the class of modern capitalists, owners of the means of social production and employers of wage labor. By proletariat, the class of modern wage laborers who, having no means of production of their own, are reduced to selling their labor power in order to live. This itself is based on a definition Engels wrote in his 1847 document, The Principles of Communism. The proletariat is that class in society which lives entirely from the sale of its labor and does not draw profit from any kind of capital, whose weal and woe, whose life and death, whose sole existence depends on the demand for labor, hence on the changing state of business, on the vagaries of unbridled competition. The proletariat, or the class of proletarians, is, in a word, the working class of the 19th century. This definition differs from how it's commonly used today, which is usually blue-collar workers, or at least workers who perform physical labor, who aren't salaried. They get paid an hourly or daily rate rather than a monthly rate, and who are often, but not always, low paid. Marx and Engels, however, use a more expansive definition, including all wage laborers, regardless of the physicality of the labor they perform. For them, the working class are all those who work for the owning class. While I do find the distinction between the owning class, bourgeoisie, and the working class, proletariat, important, I think their focus on wage labor excludes a significant portion of the population that, like those who perform wage labor, also doesn't control the means of production. As a result, when I use the term working class, I'm referring to a broader population, not just those performing wage labor for the owning class. Rather than referring to only those who sell their labor to the owning class, I see it as referring to everyone who isn't owning class. My definition of the working class, for example, includes stay-at-home parents who are performing unpaid domestic labor. While it is possible that some stay-at-home parents belong to the owning class, I anticipate that most do not own or control the means of production. Instead, they are caring for children, the future members of the labor force. Their labor in keeping their families fed and healthy helps to ensure a strong and healthy labor force, both now, through the labor they perform to ensure their partner can remain in the workforce, and in the future, as their children enter the workforce. When I say working class, I'm also including disabled people. Now, there certainly are some disabled people in the owning class, and there are, of course, some participating in wage labor. However, there is also a significant portion of the disabled population that neither owns the means of production nor sells their own labor to those who do. After all, disabilities often interfere with one's ability to sell that labor. However, they can still be exploited by the owning class, who control their daily living costs by setting the prices of the goods and services that disabled people have to buy. They also exploit disabled people by lobbying governments to reduce funding to social programs, including income support programs. To me, working class also includes post-secondary students. Of course, some students in university, college, or trade school also hold down jobs, full-time or part-time. So it makes sense that they be considered working class. However, I had students who don't hold down a job as well. Unless they own the means of production, which most probably don't, then they're working class. I also add retired people to my definition of working class. There are certainly retired people who are owning class, but the majority weren't, and they still aren't. And such, they too are working class. And the list goes on. I find not only common usage of working class too limiting, but also the definition Marx and Engels used. I believe that if we want a better society, one that takes care of the people who live within it, it'll require solidarity among a much broader group of people. Solidarity.